Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cait. I am a part-time master's student at the University of Oxford, a full-time Google employee, and also a project manager at Accepted Consulting. Today I thought I would talk through some of the questions that I get asked about my master's program at Oxford, and also just a couple of questions that I've gotten recently about sort of managing my time. And I did leave an open question box on my Instagram to allow people to ask a whole lot of things, and I got some really great questions that I thought I would share with you all today. But the primary task of this video is to talk about some of the common questions that I get asked about my master's program at the University of Oxford. So I've written all these questions down in my notebook because my phone is the camera. So for anyone who's thinking of starting a YouTube channel that's worried they don't have a camera, all of my YouTube videos have been filmed on my phone. So just get in and do it. The first most common question that I get asked is, what is your master's program? So the master's that I am currently doing through the University of Oxford is a master's in literature and arts. It is a part-time, partially online master's. So instead of being 1 year long, it is 2 years. And I'll talk about how it's structured in a little bit. And I just love that my cohort in particular in the master's program is so diverse. They have people from all over the world, from all different kinds of backgrounds, all different age groups. And I just think that it contributes so much to such a rich discussion in our groups. My master's program in particular, being a master's in literature and arts, is a completely interdisciplinary master's program comprising of English literature, history, art history, architecture, and philosophy. And it's really quite a fascinating master's in that aspect. We're really asked to kind of think outside of the box instead of writing what would be your typical literature essay or writing what would be your typical history essay, for example. It is really exciting to delve into all these different areas and see how they connect, because they all do connect, and that's just really exciting. A big aspect of this master's is that it is a matriculated master's. What that means in Oxford is that you are officially a part of the university. So if you haven't gone to look at my first week at Oxford where I'm matriculated, I will leave that in one of these corners. I'm not sure which one exactly, but one of these corners, and have a look at our matriculation ceremony. Essentially what that means is that you are officially inducted into the university and your name appears on the university roll, which is really quite exciting. Basically, it just means you've attended Oxford before. What that also means is that you are then a part of one of the Oxford colleges. Now, you would have heard about this, I'm sure, about the Oxford colleges. Best way to describe it is like your Hogwarts house at Oxford. Your college is your family away from home when you are in Oxford, and the college that I'm a part of is Kellogg College. Kellogg College is one of the newer colleges, but it is also one of the colleges that is primarily only for graduate students. There is no undergraduates at Kellogg, and it is also one of the colleges that really supports and promotes part-time and distance learning. And the way that they do that is that they offer part-time accommodation for you at the college itself. And this is essentially like a booking.com kind of situation. It is open to the public to stay there as well, but as a student you get a discount rate to stay there. And when we have to go in for our residencies, which I'll talk about in a bit, we book in at the college, or you can book in wherever else you want to go. You don't have to stay at the college. I love staying at college because you can also get meals and stuff like that. You still have to pay for it, but it is very comped, and that's really great. It also just gives you that sense of college life. So when I applied for my master's program, I applied for Kellogg College, and that's the one I got. So I'm really happy about that. The way that my master's program is structured is that it is a part-time online master's, primarily online master's. So what that means is that we have effectively two sort of parts to our masters. We have the online aspect of the masters, and then we have our residency weeks. So what our residency weeks are is that once a term we actually go into Oxford and we spend 5 days in intensive lectures and seminars on topics that we choose ahead of time. So for example, some of the courses are in Shakespeare or Tudor history. I'm thinking of the ones of the residency coming up now in February. You choose 2 out of the 4 options at each residency, and then you attend 5 days of intensive lectures and seminars. You don't have to obviously just stay those 5 days. You can stay as long as you like in your accommodation. I think the limit on part-time accommodation at Kellogg College, for instance, I think is 2 weeks. But what I realized from my first residency, which I'll be implementing now on my second residency, is that once you've done your 5 days of intensive lectures, you really need a little bit of time after you've been there to kind of get into the libraries, get into the archives, those kind of things. The residencies, the last residency that we did in October, as I say, it was 5 days of intensive lectures, but it did also include things like tours and stuff like that. Those were a part of the 5 days that we were there, and they were organized by the course. And I think certain seminars will have sort of additional bits that they throw in there. Those are all part of the seminars that you sign up for. So that's basically how it works. In between the seminars is effectively online autonomous learning. So each week we have a new module that we look at in our own time, and we structure our own studying and our own time management around those modules. All we have to do is contribute to a discussion online in a discussion page. Obviously, at the end of the masters, we have to write a dissertation, but at the end of each of the residency weeks, we are prompted to write an essay, which is effectively like our assignment. So I think we write 4 in total, because I believe we have 4 residencies, 5,000 words, and they're prompted from the discussions and the topics of conversation that we have in the residencies. So right now I'm working on my first essay, my first research proposal, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'll talk a bit more about that maybe in another video. If you're interested, let me know in the comments down below. The other thing that I get asked a lot is, what is the admissions process for the masters? So depending on the program that you're applying for, the way that this master's application process went is that we had to apply via the university's website. I'll leave links, obviously, and you had to provide supporting documentation for your admission. And that supporting documentation had to be a statement of purpose, for instance. It was a statement of purpose and written samples of work, as well as a CV and a personal statement. I think I pulled all those together with the help of Kaylin. She was my accepted consulting advisor at the time. That's actually how we met. And we pulled that all together and submitted my application. Once that is submitted, so you submit that's all online. Once that's submitted, if you make it through the first round of admissions, they call you for an interview. What that interview entails is that you have to identify an artifact. It can be anything. They don't give you any kind of direction on what the artifact needs to be or how old it needs to be or anything like that. But what you do need to be able to do is talk to this artifact for about 5 minutes. I think it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I can't remember exactly. And you can take any angle you want to when you're discussing this artifact. So for me, what I ended up talking about was a tiny little silver vial that I saw in the Ashmolean Museum, which was labeled as a witch in a bottle. And this kind of just really stuck with me, and I ended up speaking about history and folklore and how it framed ideas of stereotypes in today's society. That's the admissions process for my master's program. Obviously, every single master's program, even within Oxford, is going to require different things. So this isn't by no means universal, but that was the admissions process that I went through. I covered off quite a few questions in that sort of big ramble. Hopefully I will be able to like edit down into something that's actually comprehensible. But the next question that I got off of my Instagram was, how old am I and how do I feel about going back to uni at my age? Well, this is a very important question, I think. I'm currently 32 years old and I've been working in corporate since I left my undergrad in law for the last 8-9 years now. 8 years, still 8 years. I've been working in corporate law for the last 8 years, and I've now decided to go back to university a little bit older than I think your average master's student would be. But I actually feel that I feel myself far more equipped to deal with graduate studies now, being slightly older and coming at it from a place where I know that this is exactly what I want to do. It can be intimidating, I'm not gonna lie about that. It can absolutely be intimidating when you arrive at classes or you arrive at conferences and some of the people presenting in conferences who are, finishing up their PhDs or whatever, are younger than you are, and you're kind of just starting in this role. It can be really, really intimidating. You can kind of feel, oh no, what on earth am I doing here? But one thing that has really kind of stuck with me, being a slightly older student, is that I've come to this decision to study later on in life with absolute certainty. This is something that I've really considered and something that I really, really want to do, and something that I'm absolutely committed to doing 120% because I'm paying for it myself. But there's a lot to be said about coming back into academia much later on in life, when you do have more of a certainty about who you are and what you want. And while I do still feel really awkward about it in some places, especially being an older student, I just know that this is where I want to be. But that's not to say that it isn't intimidating being an older student. I mean, some of the people in my cohort have come straight out of undergrad and they've gone into their masters, and they're much younger than I am. But I think that just adds for livelier conversation, and they're all great. Everyone's great. I think everyone comes to academia when they need to come to it. And so if you are feeling a bit self-conscious, being a bit older, but thinking about going back into academia, I would 120% recommend it. It is the best decision that I've ever made. Okay, next question. How do you maintain balance across your program, work, and personal life? Yeah, the $1 million question. I think, again, this is something that works different for everyone. I know some people are really big planners and they need to sort of time block their day and work in that sort of way. For me, I work by priority. So I have a very flexible schedule, and I'm very lucky that my work schedule is flexible most of the time, that I have control over my calendar and I can schedule meetings when and if I need them. And that my job does give me a huge amount of autonomous time to work and also to balance my life and my calendar. But one thing that I always have done is make sure that I have flexibility in my plans. So what that means is that I don't have an absolutely regimented, set days for working on certain things. I do try and time block my calendar as much as I can, but I also don't restrict myself. So for example, most of the time I will time block mornings for, addressing university work. But on mornings or on days where I have, today for instance, on days where I have a huge amount of work asks, I will make sure that I prioritize those over my studying. And I think essentially it is just one of those things that you've got to make sure that you understand what needs to be done first and foremost, what you can push back on, and where not only your priorities lie, but what the expectations of you are, and to manage those expectations as much as possible. So another really key thing in this is learning to say no, and I'm not very good at saying no at all. I'm really, really poor at it. But learning to say no and pushing back when something is not that urgent is really, really important. Now, as I mentioned, work has been really, really demanding, and there are a lot of asks that I need to complete and work that I need to do in this time frame. So what I've started doing is getting up early in the morning to start working on my university essay at 5 until about 8 in the morning. Now, this really works for me. I can get up early in the morning. I sometimes feel tired, but not always, and I don't do it every single morning. I do it 3 mornings out of the 5, and I just make sure that I set myself up for that. So I put out my clothes the night before, and I set my alarm, no backups, and I get up. And what's really helped with that is being able to co-work with Kaylin. So I highly recommend that if you are doing this, you look into things like body doubling. It really, really helps keep you accountable, because I know if I didn't have her meeting me there, I wouldn't feel as guilty about sleeping in or missing a session. But those morning sessions have actually helped me to plan out my essay and make sure that I am on track for submitting in a decent amount of time, which is really, really great. So highly recommend body doubling with a friend or with another member of your cohort. But if you feel like you need that sort of sense of accountability, obviously I am going to recommend Accepted Society. It is an absolutely fantastic community of students from all different backgrounds coming together and just sharing their experiences, sharing their thoughts, sharing their ideas, and then also being able to join study sessions that run at particular times throughout the day, throughout the week. We cover 3 different times across different time zones, so usually there's something for everyone. And we also offer planning sessions and things like that. So please, if you are interested in Accepted Society, I will leave a link down below. We would love for you to join us. It really is so wonderful, such a great place to be a part of. Working and meeting deadlines is not the be all and end all. One thing I've really had to learn taking on so much is that I have to listen to my body, and I have to make sure that I set aside time for the things that really, really matter, and that's spending time with my family and spending time with my friends, and recognizing where I'm on the verge of burnout. And I have been there. I've been in burnout zones this year so many times because I don't recognize the stages when I'm going through them. Obviously, towards the end of the year now, I finally feel like I have a handle on it, and I feel like I'm in a better space, but certainly mid of this year, I was just running on fumes and it wasn't really, really good. And I could see the consequences of that on myself, on my attitude, on the effect that had on my family and my friends that were around me. And I think being able to realize what your limits are and being able to say no when that's necessary is so important. Another kind of similar question to this is, how are you coping with juggling married life and academia? So my partner, my husband, Jonathan, and I have been married for 5 years next year, and we've been together for 8 years, I think. And we've grown together as a couple. We've moved across the world together twice. I don't think I could manage doing all of this without him. He has and is to this day the most supportive husband. And I think just having a partner, again, we are both in a very privileged position. We're both working, and we've just bought this amazing house together. But I think what comes out of it is having that sort of structural family support that allows you to explore these options, explore academia as an older student, going back into academia a bit later on in life, and keeping the communication lines open and voicing to your partner or to your family and to your friends what you need and what you want, but also be willing to accept when they need you and that you can't just push them aside. So it is a very reciprocal relationship, and but I definitely would not be here without him. So the next two questions are just really fun questions to finish off this video. What are your adorable dogs? Well, thank you. My dogs are very adorable and I love them. We've got 3 dogs. We've got 2 Swedish Valhunds and 1 Pomeranian cross mix. We're not really sure what he is. For those of you that don't know what Swedish Valhunds are, they are a rare shepherding breed, so they're a herding breed and obviously come out of Sweden, but they were essentially Viking dogs. The Vikings had them in their sort of homestead, I suppose, and we first got Millie, who is our firstborn sweet darling baby child. She came with us, we got her when we were in New Zealand, and we've had her since she was a pup. And we got her from a breeder out there in New Zealand, and she's made us fall in love with the breed. And they're not incredibly common here in Ireland. I haven't seen another one in Ireland, but I do know they're quite common in the UK. Or not common, but they're more well known in the UK. And having had Millie and being a part of the Swedish Valhund community out in New Zealand, when we came out to Ireland, we connected with a couple of groups out there, and there was someone in France, the Swedish Valhund group in France, who needed to rehome their elderly male who was really, really nervous and not very socialized. And I immediately jumped on the bandwagon and I said, we'll take him. His name is Leon, and he is the most lovable pup in the entire world. He's an older dog and he's kind of set in his ways, but he is really lovable and really kind and very sweet. But he's nervous and skittish, and he's not really friendly with strangers. So he comes across really, really aggressive, but he's not. And we are working with him all the time to make sure that he is feeling more and more comfortable with people. And it's working. He is definitely starting to feel more and more comfortable, which is good. Our other little dog, Finn, who is the Pomeranian cross. We don't really know what he is. We rescued him. He didn't come from a great background, and we got him in the middle of COVID. So we actually got him second. We got Leon about a year ago. So Finn we got in the middle of COVID. Millie we've had since she was a pup. Finn was our second dog, and we rescued him, and he was an incredibly nervous little pup when we got him, and now he is just a wonderfully animated addition to our family, and we love him beyond measure. And I'm just looking over because he's like lying in his bed over there. But yes, those are, oh, here he comes. You want to say hi? Come on. Here you are. There he is. Say hi. Say hi. He's a good boy. Hello. Did you have a nice nap? Was it nice? It's a good boy. Alright. Yeah, so those are our 3 dogs. They are absolutely amazing. They all get along really, really well with each other, and we love them. They're great. They're absolutely wonderful. So then the last question that I got, which I love this question because it's obviously something that I will always talk about, is what is on your reading list? Would love to follow along with what you're reading. Well, so if you want to follow along with what I'm currently reading, I will leave a link to my Storygraph account, which in the description. I use Storygraph. I do not use Goodreads. Sorry, it took me a while. I use Storygraph, and I will leave the link down below there. So I have a number of reading sort of videos that I put up, my 2023 TBR list, some of the books that I'm reading for masters. I'll leave all of these kind of cards just like popping up throughout, you know, the space. But if you really want to follow along with what I'm reading, please go follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. That is where I really record my sort of day-to-day reading journey. At the minute though, I am trying to work through the last couple of books of my 2023 TBR. But what I am currently reading at the minute is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. Really, really enjoying it. Absolutely loving the kind of crossover between Victorian England and like magic realism, which is very, very cool. And then one of the books that I'm reading for my 2023 TBR is Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. I haven't actually started this yet. I read the introduction by Zadie Smith for the Virago Modern Classics versions last night, and I thought it was really interesting, so I'm excited to dive into that. So the book that I just finished this morning, because I'm writing on it in my master's essay, is In Search of Mary C. Cole by Helen Rappaport. I have obviously read The Wonderful Adventures of Mary C. Cole, which is her autobiography. For those of you that don't know about Mary C. Cole, please go have a look at her. She has a really fascinating history, and this biography of her by Helen Rappaport, I think, was published a couple of years ago. It's pretty recent. Yeah, 2022. It was last year. And I picked this up while I was in Oxford, not this last time that I was there, but a while ago. And it's actually signed by Helen Rappaport, which I absolutely love. Love that. But I finished this book this morning, and it is an absolutely perfect addition to my research. So that's my current reading list. But definitely go follow me on Instagram and on TikTok, and you will see what I'm reading on the day-to-day. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. It helps me out so much so that I can continue making videos about, you know, my life, my journey in Oxford, and reading bits and everything in between. So thank you for the support, and we'll see you all soon.